Hello, my fellow seekers. Welcome to Into the Work, therapy for empaths, seekers, and the intuitively driven, where you have front row seats to therapy sessions and expert interviews that will help you define the important work that you're here to do. So I guess you actually have something better than front row seats. You practically have a seat on my couch. That's right, you will have unrestricted access to actual sessions with real people, exploring real life issues. You will continue to be inspired by powerful conversations with experts and healers that might just share exactly what it is that you need to hear to get unstuck. I am Michelle Pauverman. I am a recovering people pleaser and former anxiety-driven empath, turned now mostly grounded psychotherapist and intuitive coach. I have been helping people for almost 20 years manage their limiting beliefs and anxiety to finally stop the self-sabotage and step into their gifts. I created this podcast, Into the Work, to give you a place to learn more about yourself and give you actionable strategies to finally move those roadblocks holding you back so you can go for what you want. Above all else, my hope is that this podcast is a catalyst for your awakening. If you're listening, you've already taken a step towards getting off of autopilot, and our next steps together will be taken episode by episode, waking you up to the possibilities, the new ways of thinking and being, so that you can stretch into that next level of your story. The spark has already been lit, and my friend, this is a journey from spark to brilliance. So together, let's light a fire. Hey there, and welcome back to the show. Today, we are talking about how to tell the difference between fear and intuition when we're facing making decisions. Here's why this is so important for you to pay attention to. Because learning to trust yourself is one of the most important things you can do. It's a game-changing skill. And when you are all jacked up on fear and wondering if it is intuition, you are feeling significantly more disconnected from yourself and distrustful of what move to make. But more importantly, you start feeling trapped and powerless to move forward, so you start asking everybody else what to do. So let's dig deeper here, because you are worthy of more, and learning how to do this and figuring this out can be so helpful. So here are some examples that you may relate to, just so you can have an idea of how this might be showing up. So have you ever stayed in a toxic relationship too long, right? Maybe a toxic job too long, or anything, a toxic situation too long. But let's say your fear, right, is telling you, what if I never find somebody else? What if I never find another job? What if I'm broke? What if all the things that might happen? Maybe I'm being too sensitive. Maybe there's something wrong with me and not the relationship. Right? That's what we tend to do, is look inward versus holding the people accountable in our relationships, because that's scary. And so if you have this habit of fear getting in the way, you're not tapping into the intuitive thing that's happening, the intuitive sense that you have. All of us have it. And something feels deeply off here. You are receiving in that situation that something feels deeply off here. And I don't feel safe. I don't feel valued. And I know deep, deep down inside, this isn't feeling good for me. But I might squash that for the sake of my fears and for the sake of feeling safer staying than going, right? And the consequence is that you might ignore red flags and stay in places that drain you or harm you, leading to emotional exhaustion, lost time, and even physical consequences, because there are physical consequences to our stress. Another thing to consider when you're looking at situations where why it might be important for you to learn how to decipher fear and intuition so that you can really make better decisions. Another consequence of not being able to decipher the fear and intuition might be missing out on life-changing opportunities. Sometimes both are present, and we need to decipher and get clear which is intuition and which one's fear. So fear says, I'm not ready. What if I fail? What if? And intuition says, this is scary, but it feels right. It feels right. And we're going to talk about how different intuition feels coming in. But consequences here could be that you turn down an incredible job, a huge business opportunity, a creative endeavor, because fear disguises itself as practicality. And later, regret sets in because it felt practical or safer in some way. Or how about, have you ever made a rash decision out of panic or angst? This is the opposite of freezing up and ignoring intuition. But in this example, your fear is saying, right, I have to act right now or everything is going to fall apart. And intuition says, take a deep breath. There's time. There's time to make a wise choice here. And you have the wisdom in you and you need to access it. The consequences of making like these hasty decisions, like quitting a job abruptly or cutting off relationships impulsively, or maybe making big financial moves out of anxiety, can lead to regret and unintended consequences, right? So there are lots of ways that letting fear override intuition can lead to, not great things, like also overcommitting and burning out. If fear says, if I say no, they'll think I'm selfish, I'm being mean, I'm a bad person, I'm going to hurt the relationship. But intuition says, I need to protect my energy. This isn't aligned with me. Everything about this feels wrong. I know in my heart of heart that that's going to be really hard and I don't really want to do it. The consequences of saying yes out of guilt leads to exhaustion. It leads to resentment. It leads to feeling trapped in obligations that aren't right for you. And guilt is usually, right at the door there. Guilt is usually a factor in that leads you down that road. Now, also worsening mental and physical health, when we don't know the difference between fear and intuition, fear sometimes tells us that things aren't a big deal, that you just need to push through. Like your fear is afraid that, you won't be loved or you won't get what you need or you'll be out in the street or whatever, right? This isn't a big deal. Just keep pushing through, keep pushing through. But intuition says something isn't right in my body. I need to check this out. This does not feel good, right? Ignoring that, let's say about health concern, can delay necessary medical care, can lead to serious consequences. Anxiety and stress can also manifest as chronic illness. But like I said in the beginning, one of the biggest things is the consequences really that you're missing out on when you lose trust in yourself. When fear says you can't trust your instincts, that you'll make some bad decisions, bad things will happen. And intuition is trying to teach you that you have a beautiful system of inner wisdom that can guide you, and continually doubting yourself weakens your self-trust, which is necessary for you to tap into it, and making you more dependent on external validation. It disconnects you from your wisdom and wants to know what everybody else thinks. Now, fear and intuition to the untrained eye can seem very similar, but they are very different. I mean, I get this question all the time when I'm teaching on intuition. It's like everybody is like, how do I tell the difference, Michelle, between intuition and fear? Because sometimes I feel like I really need to listen to this because this could be telling me that something really bad's going to happen. And I don't ignore that, right? But here's the thing. I'm going to tell you truthfully, and this is not what you probably want to hear. But in the beginning, you may not really be able to tell the difference. But by listening to me today and share with you some ideas about this, you are going to start to open yourself up, and it takes practice. It's a muscle. You have to shift the habits you have right now in how you respond on your attachments to fear and shifting your attachments to intuition. So for instance, a story I like to tell, I don't think I've told this one on the podcast yet, but I was once in the midst of all my experiences and learning and growing and doing the work. I was once at a sound bowl healing and in a room full of people. And in the middle of this beautiful sound bowl experience, I was having these incredible experiences. One of them felt like a past life. It felt incredible. I was seeing things and experiencing things. It was beautiful. I was in such a deep, deep state of relaxation. And suddenly, out of nowhere, a flash came to me where I saw my entire family in a vehicle drive off the side of a mountain. And we all crashed and died. I know it's glib, but I sat up in fear, like, oh my God. And I looked over and my mentor at the time, my teacher at the time was sitting near me. And, I looked over to her and she said, are you okay? And I said, I just saw my whole family drive off the side of a mountain. And I think that was just telling me that something, that this really bad thing is going to happen. And now I'm really freaked out. And she looked at me and she said, oh my gosh. She's like, I said, I think this is like an intuitive message. And she said, oh no, dear, it's not. It is very far from an intuitive message. And she put me at ease and she said, this is not it. This is all fear. It's all emotion. And I really learned and started paying attention to a really interesting thing that happens often, which is when we are in a deeply relaxed state, or hey, let's just say you're feeling really good and really happy and in the best mood ever, suddenly your brain sabotages it and starts giving you these bad negative thoughts, or comes in with, your whole family flying off the side of a mountain and dying. And it's almost like this incredible protective ego system in place where the brain wants to bring you back into fear state because it feels unsafe for you to be too expansive. I know that sounds crazy, but man, have I seen it happen with other people as well, and have had it happen multiple times. And it does. It's how we sabotage our happiness. It's something similar. So there is this difference between experiencing fear and experiencing intuition. And intuition is never full of that kind of emotion. Okay. So fear is often loud, anxious, rooted in past experiences or conditioning. Now, funny enough, I did not mention this, but when I started really learning about this, about fear being really rooted in past experiences sometimes, I remembered that when I was living in Colorado, my parents came to visit me and I took them into the mountains. They were assuring me they did not really have a very good life insurance policy. And because I took them rafting and we went to a wolf refuge and got to sit with wolves and did all these cool things. But while we were there, my parents, who were totally freaked out driving up the side of the mountains that were, sheer drops off the side. We got the news from a person on the trail that a family was in a car and another car came around the bend and they drove off I believe it was at Pikes Peak, and they drove off the side. And so that story had been rooted in my brain. And I had not thought of that. It had been so long. I mean, it had been, 10 years. So, or a number of years anyway. So I guess my point is like that was just pulled out of nowhere, but it did come from some, right? It did come from some. And so you're going to be looking at how fear feels big like that. It's loud, it's anxious, and it's big, and it kind of make you feel overwhelmed. Intuition is very quiet. It's very clear. It comes with a sense of knowing. In fact, intuition gives you more knowing and clarity with much less information, which is always interesting. It doesn't come with a story. Not typically. Sometimes when you're doing some beautiful guide work and you can get guidance and you're able to actually ask questions, conversate, if that's you, then you're getting a little more information. But intuition and just plain and simple how that works, there's very little information with it. It's really a knowing and clarity. Right? So for example, like feeling nervous before a big decision versus sensing deep down that something is off. The fear is going to have you kind of worked up and nervous. And I don't know if this is the right thing to do, but I have to do it. And you're all caught up in a story. But intuition is more like, deep down, something's off here. Doesn't feel right. I need to step back and slow down. So signs you're operating from fear. I want you to recognize overthinking, rumination, analysis paralysis. If you are going down a rabbit hole of fear, trust me when I tell you it's not intuition. Physical symptoms can be like fast heartbeat, stomach knots, tight chest, right? So a need for external validation before making a decision. If you're I really feel this anxiety, I think it's intuition. I got to ask everybody, that is not intuition. Intuition is such a solid, heavy knowing. It just takes space up in your being and you just know some. Worst case scenario, thinking is definitely not intuition. That's all fear. And signs that it's true intuition, it's like I said, it's that deep inner knowing that feels calm. Even if it's uncomfortable, it's sort of the knowing part feels calm. Anything that really comes after that is usually your fear. A sense of peace or clarity, even if the answer isn't what you want to hear. You know when you know, like when you've experienced it, you know to intuition, you recognize that there's just something very settled about it. Like it's something of you. The message is direct. It doesn't come with a spiral overthinking. There is no storytelling. The feeling tends to be in the body, the gut, the heart. It kind of feels like a gentle nudge. It kind of feels like it's just of you, within you, or it's hitting you. So how do you strengthen this? Because this is really big stuff for you to be able to acknowledge that if you can really separate these two and you can really learn to open yourself up to what true intuition, you can really build this trusting relationship with the universe, with yourself, but also with the things that are greater than you, that the navigational system that you have is taking you somewhere for a reason, and that you are being pulled, you are being drawn. And most of the time, we're just getting in our own way of our path. And so we have to have 4 more paths because we keep blocking the path that is the singular path, right? And so really recognizing that if you can just start to pay attention to, no, that's fear. Yes, that's intuition. And really starting to recognize the differences. You can use your body as a guide. You can practice stillness. You know, fear is loud and intuition speaks in the quiet. So you're better off. I mean, you can certainly experience intuition sitting at the grocery store in line, having somebody with a loudspeaker. It doesn't have to be this meditational state, but it does help, especially when you're new at it. It does help for you to intentionally create the space to build intuition and recognizing that your body is also a guide for you. You can tune into your gut feelings, and I recommend journaling or free writing to like kind of tap into these gut feelings. Let your inner wisdom come through. Automatic writing is something that I love to do, where I just kind of start asking the question, like, what's the intuition I need here? What do I need to know? And just start letting the pen flow and allow yourself to just sort of surrender to the pen. But you're really surrendering to guidance. You're really surrendering to your intuition. You're surrendering to the sources that be to run through you, to channel through you, and allow you to kind of get yourself the message you need to know and know how to move forward, or what is the intuition. You can also ask, is this love or is this fear? Intuition comes from expansion. Fear comes from contraction. I know we've talked a lot about expansion and contraction on this podcast. It is certainly true if you recognize, what do I feel here? Do I feel expansion? Then I think this might be intuition. Do I feel contraction? Then I think it's fear. I have put a link in the show notes for my free guide to emotional intuition if you haven't already signed up for it. It's called the Guide to Emotional Intuition for Decision Making. And it walks you through some of these steps of asking for emotions to come up and having a conversation with them, asking them what you need. It's a beautiful way of releasing trapped emotions from the body as well. And it allows you to move out energies that might be blocking you from being able to access your intuition. And the emotions themselves are intuitive information. So it's always really rewarding. So it's a really great practice to try. I don't know if you've ever done a body scan, but it's basically you sit quietly and you scan through the body and you just sort of like go through the head and the jaw and then the arms, and then you're making your way down the body. And this would be a great way for you to show up in your body. You know, how does my head feel? Is there any emotion in this emotional component here? Is there any emotional residency here? Is there anything taking up space that I need to pay attention to as you move through the head, the chest, the throat, the big spot for a lot of us? And you can kind of sense where fear versus intuition shows up. One of the things I do also tell people is that when you're learning how to access intuition, it's really awesome and best to create a very relaxed state. So sometimes when I'm teaching like Reiki or we just teach intuition, we're talking about like becoming like jelly. I want you to like shake out your body like you're jelly and you actually like spaghetti or whatever. And then I want you to shake out anything so that you're not uptight, because we're trying to get you out of your head. The best way for you to tune into intuition is to get out of your head. You'll notice that most of the stuff that you have going on that's not intuition, that we're calling fear-based, is all up in your head. It's like it's in your body because the thoughts trigger a reaction of stress in your body, but really the story is there. And another thing I really like to tell people is to try the yes-no test, like feeling how your body reacts to different words or different decisions or things that you want to try. So if you're wondering if, your decision that you're trying to make is feeling like I can't tell if it's fear-based or if I shouldn't move forward, I want you to just go ahead and ask yourself for a yes-no test. Part of the yes-no test is asking a question like, is this the right choice for me? Yes or no? And listening to see if you hear yes or no. Another way of doing it is actually utilizing the body with the sway test, which is a little bit like a bit of kinesiology. So you are basically standing there very relaxed, and I want you to show me forward yes, and then show me back no, and then you kind of let yourself sway forward for yes, and then say show me no, backward no. And then when you practice that, then you can ask the question like, is this supplement that I'm about to take healthy, safe, and effective for me, right? You say forward yes, back no, and just see where your body goes. Does it move forward? Does it move back? Those are great ways for you to get out of your head and just start to use the body as your barometer of yes or no to tune into intuition and get past fear. I really love that one a lot. It was one of my gateways in. When I was sick with Lyme disease, I had somebody teach me that, and I was like, wow, I had no idea. I was literally in Whole Foods. I'd be holding supplements and asking, you'd see me in the aisle holding my supplements up against my heart, and I'd be like, yes, forward, no, back. And is this healthy, safe, and effective? And honestly, if I didn't listen to it because somebody had told me I should definitely take it, and I didn't listen to it, it always made me sick. Like if it said no and I went back and I did it anyways, it made me sick. So it's a wonderful way. Our bodies hold so much information. It's crazy. It's very cool. Muscle testing is very cool. So that's it for today. I really just wanted to encourage you to trust yourself more. I want to encourage you to use your intuition as a muscle and let it get stronger and stronger. Practice these different creative ways of tapping into it. These yes, no, or using your body as a guide, journaling, free writing, really tapping into, is this love? Is this fear? And you're going to start to recognize that fear becomes very clear. Fear becomes very, very clear. As soon as there's a heightened emotion and there's a story and there's stuff happening, it is fear. And it really can become a game changer in your life. Be able to get past the fear, to cancel it, to push it aside and recognize I need to tap into intuition. Thank you, fear, but I need to tap into intuition. I really need to listen to the wisdom and not the what ifs. And so getting that muscle going is going to really help you to move forward in life and really do things that are in alignment. So I hope this was helpful. It really excites me to inspire you to become more intuitive, because as I always say, intuition is one of the strongest mental health medicines there is, physical health medicines. I mean, it is so good for us on so many levels to learn how to go within for answers, to trust ourselves, to know what's right for us, and to act accordingly. I mean, it's huge. It's so much. So if you didn't feel inspired yet, I hope you did today. Have a wonderful week, and I will talk with you next week. Bye for now. Thank you for listening to Into the Work Therapy for Empaths and Seekers. Don't forget to grab your free gift, your Shadow Work Transformation Bundle at michellepoverman.com. I've included everything you need to get started to break through the patterns of self-sabotage and finally start to heal the parts of yourself that are getting in the way of truly reaching your potential. From a powerful meditation designed to help you meet and embrace your shadow self, to the guide that's full of curated prompts and important questions to support you on this journey. This really can be the work for you to unmask the root cause of all the issues you've been experiencing, honestly, and start to feel free to believe in yourself and go for what you want. The link for this free bundle is in the show notes. And if you like this episode, I would be so grateful if you could take a moment and rate, click and follow, and leave a review. Of course, you can always follow me on socials at Michelle Poverman. And keep in mind, as you embark on your journey from spark to brilliance, remember, the universe is always conspiring in favor of your awakening. Everything that's happening is in support of you lighting your own fire within. So until we meet again, may your path be well lit and your heart be guided. Shine bright, seekers. Until next time.